So now that I've done the gameplays of every single game that I did for this episode, it's now time to review them all. And I did quite a bit of parts for gameplays because, of course, the last game that I did was on the Nintendo Switch. And even though it was a Famicom Disk System game, that game was available through Nintendo's Switch Online service. So as a result, I saved that game for last, and I kept it as a separate part because it was the only game for the Famicom Disk System that I had not played that was available through that service. So now it's time to get to the review of all 5 games. And of course I'm going to start with this game. Yep, it is Paddock Space, and this was the game that I've been waiting to do. This was the game I've been waiting to play. This, of course, is one of the games in the series of games that these developers did for the Famicom Disk System, and it lasted until, of course, the 6th game. The 6th game was, of course, the last game that they made, and that was Jak and Disc Joe, which, of course, I reviewed several years ago. Last year, I reviewed the first game, and the first game, of course, was the only game that was available in stores. The remaining games were only available through kiosks. So to get Paddock Space, you had to go to a kiosk to play it. And, well, I shouldn't say play it, to download it, I should say. Download it to the disc. And once it was downloaded to disc, you could be able to play it. So Paddock Space was another puzzle game, but this time it involved a laser. And this laser, if you move it to a direction that you shouldn't, it'll end up exploding the entire area and you lose a life. The object of the game is, of course, to move objects around so that way the laser hits the exit. And once it hits the exit, you can move on. That allows you to complete the level. And that's how the game goes. And I'm going to tell you that out of all the games that I played for this episode, this is the best game. And I really liked this game. It was a lot of fun. I didn't really have any problems with the gameplay. And I found out what that music's from. It's actually from Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. That is right. It's from Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, when you're going in to the temples. That is right. So that's where I heard it from. So now you know. And surprisingly enough, they kind of used that for the music. The music wasn't too bad. I really will say that. If I had to pick a negative, I will say it was the music here and there. But I did like that one. I will say I liked that one. But of course, I liked the graphics and I liked the gameplay and the controls. They were pretty well the controls were really well responsive, and I liked the graphics and especially the gameplay. So as a result, I am giving Paddock Space a green card. The next game, of course, I did was Dead Zone, and this game needed a English translation because it was one of those games where you had to read text in order to help you play the game. But that was not the only thing. You had to pick an option in order for you to advance. That's the entire game in a nutshell. It was one of these games where you pick an option and that's supposed to progress you to the next part of the game. But the thing about it is, there was a problem. I didn't mind the graphics, I really didn't. The graphics were good. The problem was the gameplay. I had a tough time getting out of that screen, or that place I should say, because you start off in a trash compactor. That's right, it was in a trash compactor. If you remember Star Wars, the crew for the Millennium Falcon ended up in the trash compactor, and it was closing in on them. And Dead Zone is the same way. It closes in on you. And I found out later, and I found this out through watching YouTube videos, that you have to wait until it's almost about to squish you in order to be able to get out. That's how bad this game is. This has a time limit when that one thing is activated, thanks to your robot buddy Carrie, and you don't have much time. You have to figure out how to get out of there. And I found out how to get out of there, but that was of course off camera. You have to wait until it's almost closed, then go up, and then you can open up that grate and get out of there. That was ridiculous. And after that, I played a little more of it and I just got bored. That's the problem with this game, is the fact that you have to search for things, and whatever not, through different commands. And to me, it was just not fun at all. I did not have a good time with Dead Zone whatsoever. Even if it was in Japanese, I still wouldn't. It doesn't really matter. Even if this was translated, this still was not fun. I had no fun with this game whatsoever. So as a result, I'm giving Dead Zone a red card. The next game, of course, was Dirty Pair Project Eden. And the reason why I did this game is because this actually has mixed reviews. There are people out there that say that this is one of the best games on the Famicom Disk System because they put it in their 20 or 25 top lists for Famicom Disk System games. And there's also people that think that this game is terrible. I'm actually in the latter, but before I talk about that, let's talk about the gameplay. What you do is, of course, you are this female and you're supposed to shoot enemies and get to the next part of the stage or level. And of course, you can collect this one thing where you're able to fly a ship. And that's the entire game in a nutshell. You can shoot enemies and whatnot and head to the right because it scrolls to the right, and you can use that ship to try to get to the next part of the stage. Because I think when I was playing it, it had sections, and I was in the second section of stage or level 1. And I quit after that. I quit after that. I did play it at least for a little bit, but then I decided to quit. I did save, and there's good things about this game, but there's a lot of bad things about this game. Let's talk about the good things. The good thing is, one of the good things is that you can save. You can save your progress, which was pretty cool. And 2, even if you die and get a game over, it takes you back to that one part. And I will say, I did like that. And another thing, I like the title screen music. I didn't think that was too bad at all, even if it loops. I don't know about the music for the rest of the game, though. I thought the music for the rest of the game was okay at best. And the last thing I will say, I thought the controls weren't too bad. I really didn't. I didn't think the controls were too bad. For some things where you're flying the ship, it takes getting used to. It's not too bad. And I don't think the controls for the person that you are controlling is too bad either. So now it's time to talk about the downside to this game. I should say the downsides to this game. Because there's actually more than one. But I will tell you that the biggest problem is the gameplay. That's the biggest downfall with this game. That's the reason why I said downfall, not downfalls with this game. Because the gameplay kind of sucked. Because there were quite a bit of problems. And of course, scrolls, for one thing, until you get to the end of that part of the stage. And of course, you can get hit by an enemy, and it just takes one hit. One hit kills people. But what is worse is if you kill it and you hit the shrapnel, you die. I thought that was terrible. Hitting the shrapnel kills you? I don't get that. And another thing, I did not like the graphics. They were awful. The graphics were awful in this game. But the gameplay really sinks this down. And the thing about it is, this could have been a good game. It really could have. And I don't get the people that made this game as one of the best games and on the top 20 or 25 for Famicom Disk System Games. I don't get it. I don't think it really deserves it, because the thing about it is, the gameplay wasn't the best part of the game. It was either the controls or even the title screen music. But the thing about it is, I will say this, it was at least playable. I will say that. Because the thing about it is, I can at least play it. And I will say that out of all the games that I've played that were done by Bandai for the Famicom Disk System, this is so far their best. But that's not saying much, because the thing about it is, the game still sucked. It still sucked. It's at least not as bad as that one game, and I'm talking about Kaneko Man, that was on the Famicom Disk System. That was terrible, because the thing about it is, the controls were so bad that you couldn't even pull off a move that you wanted. And that's the reason why that was one of the worst games that I did for that particular year. Where this is not as bad, but it still sucked. And so far, out of all the Famicom Disk System games that I've played that were done by Bandai, this is so far the best. but that isn't saying much. So I'm giving Dirty Pair Project Eden a red card. The next game, of course, was the sequel to Kusho. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But the sequel is called Inoku no Mao. And of course I played the first game. I gave that a yellow card at first, but then I changed my card to red. But I will say this, I didn't think that game was that bad. The first game is considered the second worst when it comes to Famicom Disk System Games that were ranked by GameFAQs. But I'm going to say this before I get to talking about the game. I think the sequel is worse, and the sequel should have been higher than the first game when it comes to worst list for GameFAQs, because I think this is worse. I really think so, because out of all the games that I played for this episode, this is the worst game. Now I'll talk about the game itself. It is another fighting game. Of course, the first game was a fighting game as well, but I didn't think that one was too bad. And this game is a fighting game as well, but it has story. I will say the story is one of the positives, even though I couldn't read the Japanese that was on there. Hopefully someday I will read Japanese and it'll be a lot easier. But the thing about it is that was the only good thing, and the picture, or I shouldn't say the pictures, the video. It was like animated videos of those particular story parts, and I thought those were pretty cool. Those animations, I thought those were pretty cool. That was one of the best things about the game. And I will say the graphics were good, but that's not saying much. The gameplay is where it goes downhill fast. The fighting game controls are terrible, even though you can control your fighting. They are terrible, and that's what hurts the game the most. Because, of course, you have punches and kicks, and I assume you can have special moves or whatever not, but I wasn't able to figure them out. I wasn't able to figure them out, folks. And for some of the enemies that I was really fighting against, they were kicking my ass. That was the worst part. And what's even worse than that is you only get a couple continues, and then you have to start it all over again, which I thought was crap. I really wish you would have been able to continue on at that spot, because this is a Famicom Disk System game. But the problem is, this should have been a Famicom game, not a Famicom Disk System game. Because the thing about it is, there's no save feature. None! Yeah, and you do get a 2-player mode, but the thing about it is, why play this game if the 1-player mode sucks? And what's worse, you can't save. So why was this on the Famicom Disk System instead of the Famicom? Now, of course, I know that there were, at that time when that game was released, that certain games on the But the thing about it is, the Famicom Disk System was meant to save your game. Not for you to play a game and then basically having to start all over again. Now, there were some games I can give a pass for, like Super Mario Bros. 2. I can give a pass to that because the thing about it is, and certain others, because the thing about it is, they didn't really need a save feature. Because the thing about it is, they were fun. This would have been better if there was a save feature. And because there wasn't, that dips the game down even further. See, some games were not meant to be played on the Famicom Disk System. This is one of them. I think this should have been on the Famicom instead. Because if it's not going to have a save feature because of how the fighting is, and it makes the game pretty difficult when you don't have the save feature, because most games for the Famicom Disk System allowed for saves. This wasn't one of them. And because of that, that actually hurt the game even more. Because the thing about it is, it's so difficult on its own that you end up having to go back to the beginning. You have to beat every single fighter or every single enemy until you can beat the game. But the problem is, you only are allowed a few continues, and that is it. That makes the game harder. They should have had a save feature, because Dirty Pair had a save feature. This one doesn't. This should have been on the Famicom instead, not the Famicom Disk System, even though the first game was on the Famicom. Or Famicom Disk System, excuse me. But the thing about it is, I can't recommend this game at all. It's just not fun. There are better fighting games out there. I'd rather play Street Fighter 2. No question about it. Street Fighter 2 was better than this. So I'm giving Funu Shuriken Inoku no Mao a red card. Fuck this game. Alright folks, the last game, and this of course I played on my Nintendo Switch. This was the only game that I played on my Nintendo Switch, because this of course was the only game that I have not played that was on the Famicom Disk System that is available on Nintendo Switch's online service. And that is Smash Ping Pong. And I will say, for a ping pong game, it really isn't too bad. I'm going to show gameplay footage of this, a little bit of gameplay footage. And of course, it's a ping pong game, and your job is to win by getting amount of points as possible, by hitting the ball and making sure that you're able to get the ball on the opponent's side and they can't hit it to the point where it stays in and it goes out of the... You get what I mean. You get what I mean. I'm trying to explain it to the best of my ability, because the thing about it is, sometimes I can't. But the thing about ping pong is, or table tennis, you hit the ball, because you know the sport. You hit the ball, you keep hitting the ball until the ball goes out. And once the ball goes out, it just all depends on how it goes out. If it hits the opponent's side and then goes out, of course that person gets a point. And that's how the game goes. And they go up to 11 usually. And that's how the first game mode is. Game A. Game B goes up higher. I think it goes up to 21 when I last played the game. And that's what I wanted to check. I didn't play it that much because I knew that it was going to be a ping pong game. But I will say this. I will say this though. It wasn't that bad of a game. It really wasn't. So I understand why it was put on the Famicom app through Nintendo Switch's online service. Because the thing about it is, it really isn't a bad game at all. I do kind of recommend that you give it a try, because the thing about it is, it's pretty simple, and once you figure out the game, you should be able to get good at it. And even though I wasn't good at it, because I'm not that good at sports games, I will say this. It definitely was not a bad game at all. And it was definitely a breath of fresh air after the last game that I played. Smash Ping Pong at least ended the episode with a bang of some sort. It didn't end with a whimper, thank God. But I will say this. It's not as good as Paddock Space. I think Paddock Space was the best game that I played for this episode. But Smash Ping Pong comes in second. So I'm giving Smash Ping Pong a yellow card. So that is it, everybody. That is all the games that I did for this episode of Game Plan Review. I thank you all for watching. That was 5 games. And I figured 5 games for the Famicom Disk System would do pretty good for this particular episode. So, I don't know what I'm going to do next time for Game Plan Review. I might do another Famicom game, you never know. Because I actually did 4 Famicom games in the last part. I didn't do 5. And maybe I should do a 5th, just to even this sort of thing out. I just haven't decided yet what I'm going to do. Because the thing about it is, I played 5 Famicom Disk System games. I reviewed them. Some of which I probably never should have played. But the thing about it is, that's what Game Plan Review is. You play them and review them. That's all that this is. So I had to do it. And of course, I played 3 bad games. But I will say the best of the worst out of all the bad games is, of course, was Dirty Pair. Because I think Dead Zone was a little more worse than Dirty Pair, to be quite honest. So, like I said, the best of the worst was Dirty Pair, but that's not saying much. And that's so far Bandai's best Famicom Disk System game that I've played. I hope I can find a better title. I hope I find a better game. I don't know. Hopefully I will. Because I assume Bandai made some good games back in the day. I just gotta find them. So that is it, everybody. And if I do another Famicom game, I'll let you know. But for right now, I think I'm going to call it for this episode. Of course, it's still August, and there might be another Famicom title for this month. I haven't decided yet. I've been wanting to get back on track. That's the reason why I did these sort of gameplays where I'm playing like 4 or 5 games instead of 1 usually for these episodes. And that's just to get back on track, that's all. So thank you all for watching, and I will catch you next time. Stay safe and stay awesome, and happy gaming.